Exposed. The incredible truth behind the woman in rags who donated $5 million at the charity ball. Sarah's heart raced as she scrubbed the last of the grease-stained plates. The diner hummed with life, the laughter of locals mixing with the clatter of silverware. Yet, amid the comfort of the familiar, anxiety gnawed at her. Each shift felt like a refiring of the daily grind, an exhausting routine she couldn't escape. The thought of her ailing mother at home lingered like a shadow, pulling at her every instinct to run. Here, amidst the rich aromas of coffee and fried food, she felt invisible. Each smile she plastered on her face was a thin veil hiding her gnawing despair. "Another latte, Sarah," a patron called, the entitlement clinging to her words. They never saw her, the woman in rags serving them, just a specter in their Friday night fantasy. With each request, she fought back the storm of emotions brewing inside her. A yearning to break from this life splintered her concentration. What could she possibly offer beyond this grind? The walls of her small town pressed in, the limits of her reality tightening like a noose. Questions piled like the dishes in the sink. What did she want? A stable future? A moment of freedom? To paint again? Her grandmother's art collection felt like an echo of what could have been, yet here she was, fighting through each day with barely a breath to spare. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As autumn leaves fell outside, the annual charity ball loomed ahead, an opulent event woven with expectations and masked disdain for those deemed the help. The scent of opportunity wafted through the air, yet it suffocated her ambition. Would they ever see her as more than a waitress? She hesitated, but felt a spark ignite within. What if she stepped into that realm where pomp and glamour had long evaded her existence? The idea of attending the ball pulsed like a drum in her ears. Ready to unveil her grandmother's long-hidden paintings, she dove into thrift stores, searching for a dress. Yet as she transformed each thread into a semblance of elegance, insecurity wrapped around her like a cold mantle. The night danced with anticipation, but her heart sank each time she envisioned their expressions, the judgmental glances that would sweep across the room as she entered, an imposter among the polished elite, a woman in rags. It was a gamble, but desperation clung to her.
As she donned that second-hand dress with trepidation, she rehearsed her moment before a crowd that held her history at arm's length. But once inside, what would stop the whispers from cascading like wildfire? A moment of strength tangled with the fear that lay beneath her vulnerability. Sarah's heart grew heady, the weight of her truth filled with secrets. The tension in her chest tightened, a question echoing louder than the pulse of the music. Would they truly see her, or merely the cloak of poverty around her shoulders? She was determined to be more than an afterthought. It was now or never. But as she walked toward that elegant hall, every step quaked with uncertainty, her inner conflict simmering just below the surface. All she could do was hope. Hope that in her truth they would finally catch a glimpse of the artist behind the rags. The music pulsed gently from behind the grand doors, a hopeful rhythm that contrasted sharply with the tumult inside Sarah's chest. Each footfall seemed to echo her childhood, filled with dreams she had long buried beneath layers of survival. Steeling herself, she twisted the ornate handle and stepped into the luxurious foyer, the soft light glinting off polished marble and every eye lifted toward her. A flash of uncertainty gripped her before it coiled inward into a steely resolve. This was her moment, not a fleeting dream, but a chance at recognition. For too long she had played the role of the invisible, and now the artist within her craved to be seen. She could feel the eyes on her, some filled with curiosity, others tinged with disdain, yet all she saw was the flicker of judgment that threatened to consume her spirit. Sarah inhaled, savoring the blend of opulence and apprehension. She approached the painted walls displaying countless portraits, each a silent testament to ambition and artistry. Her fingers brushed the edge of her own fabric, the second-hand dress that had been lovingly transformed, reflecting not just her grandmother's artistic legacy, but a revolution within herself. As she moved further into the crowd, words flitted through her mind. What did it matter if they saw a woman in rags? What if they witnessed the soloist beneath? But people gathered in small groups, laughter streaming like currents, undeniably leaving her adrift. She needed to engage, to blend ambition with vulnerability, and somehow tether herself to the artistic tapestry she ached to unveil. Then she caught sight of a familiar face amid the sea of strangers. Laura, the gallery owner, who had once expressed admiration for her burgeoning talent as an artist. She hesitated, then pushed through, determination surging with every step. "Laura," she called, her voice steadying the tremor that ran through her. Their eyes locked, and for a moment the noise faded. "Sarah, is that really you?" Laura's voice was laced with genuine surprise as she stepped forward, the warmth in her eyes subsuming the chill of judgment.
"I've been working on some pieces," Sarah managed, gesturing to her surroundings. "I just thought, maybe—" "Your work?" Laura prompted, giving her an opening. "You brought some with you?" Sarah nodded, biting her lip. "I have images of some of my grandmother's paintings, the ones she never felt were worthy. I want to showcase them, show them that there's more to who I am than what they see." Laura studied her intently, the rapid pulse of Sarah's heart beating against hope and doubt. "You deserve a spotlight, Sarah. Let me in on your vision." The sincerity offered a rare ray of validation, yet anxiety still flickered in Sarah's mind. What if they rejected her? Would Laura abandon her under the weight of the room's skepticism? Just then she was drawn toward a gallery wall that gleamed under an array of lights. The paintings hung there bore no resemblance to the modest life she led. They were the energy of her grandmother's spirit intertwined with her own aspirations. This was it. The boundary between her past's fragility and the possibility of an enlightened tomorrow lay before her. Would she dare step outside the mold society had placed upon her? As conversations merged and music soared, each note mirrored the kaleidoscope of emotions tumbling within. Sarah closed her eyes momentarily, centering herself. The tide of confidence crested, and she knew the moment had arrived. The revelation that had stirred inside for so long was ready to ignite a flame. But one question loomed larger than the rest. Could she confront not only her audience, but the deeper perceptions of her worth? In that moment, she stepped closer to the gathering throng, determination lighting her eyes like fire. One way or another, she would break through the barriers, however daunting, before her. And then it hit her, a sudden realization, both thrilling and terrifying. What if she didn't just want to reveal the artist behind the rags? What if she wanted not just to be seen, but also to challenge the world itself, a world so rooted in judgment? With that fire igniting further, Sarah took a breath and faced the crowd. The moment had come. Yet clarity danced just out of reach, teasing her. Was she truly prepared to embrace her identity and the inevitable fallout of blazing her own trail? And as she opened her mouth to speak, the air stilled, expectant. Would this be the moment she would own her narrative, or the beginning of a deeper struggle within the bright lights of the elite? The silence enveloped Sarah like a cocoon, both suffocating and invigorating. A sharp intake of breath filled a physical void, and she felt the electric hum of anticipation from the crowd as they awaited her next move. The moment grew heavier with expectation, and the doubts that threatened to choke her ambition coiled tighter. What if she misstepped? What if her voice faltered? But amid that uncertainty, there was a flicker within, a fire born of resilience, yearning for the validation of her experiences. She positioned herself, unwavering, searching for words that would not just explain her intentions, but would convey the depth of her journey, the smudges of her past, the brilliance of her grandmother's art, and the emerging artist behind the facade. "I may not come from a place of privilege," she began, her voice gaining strength with each syllable. "But I stand here today not as a reflection of entitlement, but of transformation. We often ignore the stories behind the strokes of a brush, the struggles that mold a voice into art." As the words fell from her lips, laced with sincerity and defiance, she saw faint nods in the crowd, the glint of interest replacing earlier skepticism. The room seemed to pulsate in time with her heartbeat, invigorating her words, drawing deeper connections with listeners who rarely looked beyond surface impressions. "I am here to showcase my grandmother's paintings, works she hid from the world, thinking they were unworthy." Her heart raced as the memories surged, her grandmother's frail hands brushing over the canvases, the evenings spent in shared silence as they explored color and form. "She taught me that art breathes life into experience, and I want to honor that." With every word that spilled forth, Sarah could feel her core strength crystallizing, a burgeoning empowerment that washed over her. The flush of adrenaline intensified and muted the discourage of judgment. She found courage in vulnerability, discovering hidden facets of herself that had long been locked away. As she outlined her vision to the audience, the melding of her past and present into a collection, she caught her breath, allowing her thoughts to cascade like a waterfall. "This isn't just about art, it's about legacy. It's a commentary on every unseen life, every voice that society overlooks. It's a challenge to recognize our shared humanity and the beauty contained within it." Then she confronted her fear head-on. "I ask you not to judge me based on appearance, but to see the dreams and struggles that have shaped me, to see my grandmother's spirit alive in these pieces." Her eyes flicked around the room, landing on familiar faces. The warmth in Laura's glance, the subtle shift in the audience's collective stance, suggesting they were beginning to lean in, reconsidering their perceptions. In that moment, Sarah was bombarded by a stark realization. Maybe blurring the lines between viewer and creator wasn't a burden, but a strength. Perhaps her journey had not just been about shedding societal labels, but also about empowering those who shared a similar narrative. As applause swelled through the chambers of the gallery, she was caught between exhilaration and disbelief. She had not only revealed her identity, but in doing so, glimpsed the power of resonance, the potential to evoke change, one voice at a time. Yet, as she took her bow, questions began piling in her mind. How far could she push this newfound purpose? Could she motivate others to rise from their own shadows and confront their struggles? And most importantly, would she be prepared to face the backlash of those vested in maintaining the status quo? The next moment would define her trajectory, and she braced for it, ready to navigate uncharted territory. The internal tide was shifting, propelling her toward more than recognition, toward challenging the very fabric of expectation and artistry itself. With the crowd simmering in newfound energy, the road ahead unfurled like a canvas waiting to be painted. As she stepped down, anticipation crackled in the air.
Was she ready to confront those resistant to change? And what repercussions might she face in the face of her ambitions? The applause wrapped around Sarah, a melody of approval and tentative acceptance that resonated off the gallery walls. Heart pounding, she descended from the makeshift stage. It felt exhilarating, yet slightly hollow. As the last echoes of clapping faded, she was bombarded by an onslaught of emotions, pride, hope, and a creeping uncertainty about what lay ahead. The mingling crowd formed a kaleidoscope of personalities and opinions, each individual a potential ally or adversary. She watched as a group of critics hovered nearby, their expressions cryptic and inscrutable. Some might question her sincerity, others could uplift her voice. The realization struck her hard. Her previous silence was no longer an option. With purpose igniting her, she navigated through the sea of bodies, seeking validation from those who understood the significance of her journey. Laura caught her eye first, arms wide as she approached, an encouraging smile breaking the tension. "You were incredible, Sarah," she said, her voice laced with excitement. "You captured them. You really did." "I still can't believe I did it," Sarah admitted, a nervous chuckle escaping her lips. Her fear began to tether itself to ambition. "But that was just the beginning, right? What if I can't keep it up?" "You have to be brave," Laura said, casting a meaningful glance toward the critics who were still engaged in hushed conversations. "They're not going to like every piece, but your voice is powerful. You belong here." A flicker of doubt flashed across Sarah's mind. She had spent so long hiding behind the shades of others, and now she was on full display. What if her flaws were more evident? What if her background, the very essence that fueled her art, was seen as a weakness rather than a strength? Before she had time to spiral into self-doubt, an unexpected voice erupted from the shadows. "That was a bold move, Miss Harper," said a tall figure with piercing blue eyes. It was Julian, a well-known art critic who had a reputation for being brutally honest. "You have guts, but what you've done today is merely the first stroke. What's your next step?" His words hung in the air like a distant storm.
It dawned on Sarah that this was not just about her art anymore. It was about finding a way to articulate her vision, to spark dialogue, and potentially to incite change. "I want to organize workshops, maybe even a series of discussions. I want to create a space where others can share their stories," she reiterated, her voice steadying as she laid out her dreams. "That's idealistic," Julian retorted, his skepticism evident. "Can you handle the opposition? Those in power won't easily let you redefine their narratives." His challenge lanced through her, igniting resolve in her gut. "And maybe that's why it's necessary. People need to understand the point of origin, the struggle beneath the surface. If they can't accept the truth, then we're only perpetuating ignorance." For the first time, she noticed how closely she stood to him, her body tethered to her newfound confidence. She was no longer a timid observer. She was becoming an agent of change. As if sensing the shift in her energy, Julian's expression softened, a hint of respect surfacing. Yet navigating this new reality would require more than courage. It would demand strategy and resilience. As her vision began to crystallize, Sarah knew she needed to confront not just the audience's perceptions, but her own limitations. Feeling the weight of expectations settle on her shoulders, she glanced around, absorbing the swirling energy of the gallery, the future foreboding yet ripe with possibilities. Was she equipped to venture forth, to carve her path amidst looming resistance? As the doubt threatened to resurface, she recalled her grandmother's words, "Art is the truth beneath the surface." And just as quickly, curiosity ignited new questions. Who would support her in this journey? What challenges lay ahead? The path diverged into uncertainties, and with each step, Sarah felt the thrill of her dreams beckoning her deeper into uncharted waters. Could she confront the tides of opposition and rise above? Just as her heart settled with determination, she saw a figure across the room, a powerful art dealer known for launching careers. The familiar trepidation returned.
Was she truly prepared for the scrutiny that awaited her? The moment of reckoning was edging closer, and Sarah knew she would have to summon every ounce of grit she possessed to face the consequences of her desires. As Sarah's gaze met the art dealer's, a tangible electric current passed through her. The air around her thickened, charged with the weight of expectations and possibilities. Anxiety fluttered in her chest, but beneath it, a determination began to anchor itself. This was more than an opportunity. It was a turning point. She'd practiced for moments like this, rehearsing her pitch in front of her bathroom mirror, all for the prospect of real advancement. Yet now the urgency felt different. It was not merely her career at stake, but her identity as an artist. This was her moment to reveal the truth behind her expression.
With every measured step toward the dealer, Sarah forced herself to breathe, counting slowly to quell the rising tide of nervousness. She recalled the encouragement Laura offered. Her friend's belief in her potential fortified her resolve. "You belong here," echoed in her thoughts, infusing her with courage. "Hello," she said, her voice calm despite the whirlwind inside her. "I'm Sarah Harper. Your work in the art community has inspired me to pursue conversations that can push boundaries." The dealer turned, his curiosity piqued. He was a formidable figure, renowned for his discerning eye and shrewd judgments. "And what boundaries do you aim to push?" he inquired, his tone a blend of interest and skepticism. "We often witness art as a reflection of societal norms, but I want to explore the deeper narratives that are neglected, stories that provoke empathy and challenge our understanding of what art can be," she said, feeling each word pull her deeper into her truth. "Ambitious," he replied, a smirk playing on his lips. "But what makes you think you can create a shift in a world resistant to change? You'll encounter pushback from critics and audiences alike." She met his gaze. "I have experienced that pushback my entire life. My art is born from struggle and resilience. I know how it feels to be dismissed, but I refuse to let that define me." In that moment, clarity enveloped her. This was not an isolated dance of colors on canvas, but a representation of her voice morphing into something greater. She yearned to help others find the same expression through their experiences. "Interesting sentiment," he mused, "but the art world is unforgiving. The same passion that fuels you can just as easily ignite backlash." Without flinching, she pressed on. "Backlash can't deter me. Each negative critique pushes me further to redefine myself and my work." The conviction in her words surprised her. A flame of purpose flickered inside her, igniting her ambitions anew. The dealer regarded her for a moment, his sharp eyes assessing her resolve. Perhaps it was something in her demeanor or the way her passion erupted from within that stirred his interest. "You'll need a plan. Clear, strategic avenues for what you envision." "Absolutely," Sarah replied, already feeling the gears in her mind turning. "Workshops, exhibitions, dialogues. I want to turn my experiences into platforms for others to share and learn from." "Well, if you're serious, I can introduce you to a few connections that can help your ideas take shape," he offered, a shift evident in his tone now. Her heart raced. This was a potential turning point in her life, a chance to bridge her nascent vision with the reality of influencer networks. "I'd appreciate that," she said earnestly, knowing they were edging closer to a collaboration. But just as excitement swelled, a new layer of doubt unfurled within her. She could almost hear Julian's incredulous voice. Was she truly ready to navigate the complex tapestry of expectations? Opportunities would mean visibility, and with that, scrutiny. How thinner would the ice beneath her feet become? As they exchanged contact information, Sarah felt the weight of her aspirations becoming palpably real. The thrill of an open door mingled with the fear of what lay beyond it. She was stepping into a world where her vulnerabilities could either be her strength or her downfall.
With each interaction, she could sense the pull of her potential. Her skin tingled with the possibility of becoming something greater than she ever had before. But could she truly handle the pressures about to be thrust upon her? As the dealer turned to speak with someone else, Sarah stood rooted in place, a flash of certainty coursing through her mind. The time had come to face not merely the art world, but her own entrenched fears. The thrill of ambition surged, while shadows of self-doubt loomed ominously. Would her resolve withstand the impending storms, or would she crack beneath the pressure? With resolve tightening her stance, she felt the whispers of change coiling around her like a vine. Leaning into that vulnerability, she stepped forward, a choice to engage with her future. What would manifest first, vulnerability or courage? The next chapter of her journey awaited, and every decision could tip the scales, drawing her further into the unknown. Sarah stepped outside, the bustling energy of the gallery fading into the backdrop of her thoughts. The weight of the dealer's offer sat heavy on her shoulders, yet exhilaration fueled her steps. She was on the brink of something that could define her career, but a niggling self-doubt persisted. Would she truly measure up to the standards of the art world she longed to infiltrate? Questions swirled like a tempest, threatening to drown out the clarity she had just harnessed. As she walked, Sarah replayed their conversation in her head, his skeptical demeanor, the probing questions, and her own resolute answers. For the first time in her life, she had defended her passion with genuine fervor, stumbling upon an inner strength she hadn't known existed. Yet the lingering shadow of Julian's voice echoed, "You think this is enough? You're ready to step into the spotlight?" Shaking her head, she forced herself to focus. What came next wasn't just an exploration of her capabilities, it was a test of her will. She had a plan simmering in the back of her mind, but needed to refine it into actionable steps. She couldn't falter now. Back in her cramped studio, scattered with paints and half-finished canvases, she took a deep breath. With determined strokes, she began mapping out her vision, each line representing workshops, dialogues, and exhibitions. But to truly connect with others, she realized she needed to confront her own vulnerability.
She started small, exchanging candid emails with friends and fellow artists about their struggles with creativity. As responses trickled in, stories of rejection, self-doubt, and moments of triumph and electrifying sense of solidarity began to blossom. Each shared experience was a thread weaving their narratives into a collective tapestry of resilience. But the art dealer's voice crept in again. What if they viewed her as an imposter? What if, in sharing her truth, she left herself exposed to criticism? This internal battle churned within her, stoking the fires of anxiety and determination. Deciding to invite a small group for an informal gathering at her studio emerged as the next logical step. The thought ignited her excitement and apprehension in equal measure. What if they didn't connect with her vision? Opening up meant inviting critique, perhaps even ridicule. Yet it also offered the chance for growth. She set a date, balancing vulnerability against courage. As invitations went out, her excitement bubbled. Would anyone actually show up? Was she ready to be the facilitator of these dialogues she desired? In the days leading up to the gathering, Sarah filled her studio with canvases echoing her emotions, layers of paint that mirrored her internal chaos. Each brushstroke told its own story, yet how much of her soul would she be willing to reveal? The thought hovered like a specter, the fear of exposure putting pressure on her resolve. As she stood in front of a nearly complete canvas, she suddenly understood. This was not merely about making art or hosting an event. It was about building a community, a safe space where vulnerability could intertwine with resilience. Each moment mattered. The decision to share her unpolished self was as imperative as the art she created. When the evening finally arrived, her heart raced as she prepared her space.
The door creaked open, and in walked a mix of familiar and unfamiliar faces, each carrying their own narratives. Taking a deep breath, Sarah realized the truth within herself for the first time. This gathering wasn't about validation from the outside world. It was an opportunity to create a sanctuary of shared experiences. She was becoming the artist she always aspired to be, boldly choosing connection over solitude. But just as she commenced the evening, a text vibrated her phone, an unexpected message from the art dealer. "Excited to discuss our next steps. Let's meet soon." Suddenly, everything she had started to build felt threatened. Would this momentum lead her to compromise her vision for the sake of acceptance in the art world? What choices lay ahead that could jeopardize her newfound sense of purpose? As the gathering commenced, Sarah's resolve to embrace vulnerability clashed with her ambition, putting her at the crux of personal conflict. Which would she ultimately choose? The comfort of her evolving community, or the potential accolades that could come with the dealer's looming presence?
The paths before her twisted into the unknown, each leading to a different version of herself, one steeped in raw honesty and the other cloaked in ambition. The night was just beginning, and with it a choice that could ripple across her future awaited. The sounds of laughter and soft conversation filled the air, wrapping around Sarah like a comforting quilt, yet her heart thudded beneath the weight of uncertainty. Each face around her, smiling and animated, held stories she yearned to know, yet doubt clawed at her mind. What had she gotten herself into? The anticipated liberation she thought she would feel was now muddled by the influx of all those eyes on her, waiting for genuine connection. With each sip of her wine, Sarah forced herself to land in the moment, to breathe deeply and engage. As she glanced around, she caught sight of Emily, an artist she admired, passionately discussing the struggles of maintaining authenticity in her work. A flicker of admiration ignited within Sarah. This was how she wanted to be, the artist who spoke her truths, who inspired and connected. "Sarah," Emily called over, beckoning her into the conversation. "What do you think? How do we find our voice in a space that's constantly demanding conformity?" Swallowing hard, Sarah realized that all eyes were suddenly on her. The moment stretched taut like the strings of a well-tuned guitar. "I think it starts with vulnerability," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "We have to be honest about our fears and triumphs. For me, stepping into this role feels like a leap into the unknown. I often question if I'm enough." A wave of understanding washed over the group. Heads nodded in agreement. She hadn't just spoken about art, she had shared a sacred part of her soul. But as the laughter resumed around her, her phone buzzed hungrily in her pocket. The pivotal message burned like a brand. She excused herself, slipping into the separate room that served as her makeshift studio. Alone, the warmth of camaraderie faded, leaving a chill of isolation. Opening the text, she reread the dealer's words. They were simple, yet heavy. "Let's meet soon." What did soon mean? Tomorrow? Or would he expect her to drop everything and prioritize his vision instead of the burgeoning space she had begun to cultivate? With each pulse of her heartbeat, Sarah felt a familiar tension threading through her. The dealer represented a world that had often seemed just beyond her reach, a tantalizing chance for recognition and success, yet the price felt steep. She pulled out a sketchbook, gripping the pencil tightly. With urgency she sketched her emotions. The darkness that loomed with the dealer's impending arrival contrasted sharply against the burgeoning colors of her workshop. The struggle was palpable on the page. Lines danced between chaos and clarity. Could she truly balance her expanding community with her own ambitions? The fear of losing either sent a shiver down her spine. If she compromised her values for acceptance, would she remain true to herself? Or was this pursuit of validation a part of the journey, vital in bridging her worlds?
As she pondered, the celebration continued outside, laughter now an inviting echo. Friends were sharing their vulnerabilities, and she realized that isolation did not have to be her fate. But the decision loomed heavily. Would she be the leader they needed, or would the desire for success overshadow her commitment to authenticity? With each brushstroke of doubt, clarity began to emerge. This was about more than acknowledgement. It was about building something larger than herself, a creation unfettered by external expectations. Taking a deep breath, Sarah made up her mind. She needed to approach the dealer on her terms. This moment, this delicate interplay between ambition and authenticity, was not something to be sacrificed lightly. As she stepped back into the gathering, buoyed by her decision, the energy in the room shifted. Their conversations were spinning stories of bravado and struggle, inviting her into their narratives with open hearts. She felt herself blending into the fabric of the night, each encounter free-flowing and raw. Yet a nagging thought chimed within her. What would happen when she faced the dealer? The duality of her ambitions echoed louder, and she couldn't help but wonder how many more compromises lay ahead. The evening was still young, and the crossroads of her destiny awaited. Two paths tangled like vibrant threads, each leading to a distinctly different Sarah. Would she rise to the challenge, embracing the tension of her choices, or would she falter under the weight of expectation? Just then her phone buzzed again, the tension sparking anew. Let's talk tomorrow. The invitation was clear, but was she genuinely ready for what might lay beyond? The next morning dawned with a hazy light filtering through the curtains, illuminating the scattered remnants of the night before. Sarah felt the weight of the day ahead pressing down on her. The dealer's message replayed in her mind like an incessant drum, each beat amplifying her anxiety. She tossed and turned in bed, and for the first time her usual morning routine fell to the wayside. She brewed coffee without even a second thought about savoring its rich aroma. Clutching her cup, she perched on the edge of her bed, still in her pajamas, her heart racing with the anticipation of the meeting. The countdown to this pivotal moment fueled her apprehension. Could she handle the pressure? The demand for artistry and authenticity danced like flickering flames in her mind, both mesmerizing and terrifying. Maybe this is the chance, she whispered to herself, a half-hearted attempt at affirmation. But deep inside, the voice of doubt grew stronger, casting shadows over her excitement. Would this encounter alter the trajectory of her career? Would she be forced to conform?
Driven by a mix of dread and determination, she pulled on a pair of jeans and a simple top, attempting to keep her appearance as unpretentious as her thoughts. She needed to project confidence, and yet she felt like a masquerader in her own skin. The contrast between her fledgling sense of self and the polished dealers in the art world gnawed at her. At the cafe where they had agreed to meet, her fingers traced the edges of the table, a tangible anchor in a sea of uncertainty. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, patrons lost in chatter and clinking cups, yet Sarah felt isolated in her bubble of trepidation. She spotted the dealer approaching. His demeanor radiated the polished confidence of someone used to getting his way. As he extended his hand, she felt a surge of panic. "Sarah, glad you could make it. Let's talk about your work," he said, his smile wide and inviting. "Sure," she replied, forcing the words past her clamped lips. As they settled into their seats, Sarah grappled with the thoughts swirling inside her, determined not to let the fear of his expectations dictate her response. As the conversation unfolded, she spoke about her art with a genuine spark, drawing parallels between her workspace's vibrancy and her vision of authenticity. Observing the dealer's shifting expressions, she sensed curiosity, but also the slightest skepticism, as if he was trying to decode her motives. Each interaction became an examination, testing how much of herself she was ready to lay bare. "Art is often about commercialization and trends," he interjected softly yet firmly. "It's important to think about how to position yourself. There's great opportunity if you're willing to adapt." Adapt. The word nestled uneasily in her gut. Was this truly what she wanted? Could she create a blend of self and commercialism without losing herself entirely? A mental tug-of-war ensued, and she felt her heart race not just from nerves, but from the weight of the choice looming before her. "I understand, but what if adaptation comes at the cost of authenticity?" she retorted, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. The dealer's gaze sharpened, and Sarah could see the flicker of respect mixed with irritation. As they continued to converse, she found herself negotiating between her aspirations for exposure and the need for her art to resonate with truth. Each word and gesture intensified her internal conflict, heightening the stakes of every decision. As the conversation drew to a close, the dealer offered his card, a lifeline or a noose, she couldn't tell. "Let's keep in touch. I can help you build momentum," he said, his tone smooth yet layered with implication. Sarah left the cafe with her mind racing and heart pounding, one foot in the world of possibility, another in the cesspool of self-doubt. She took a moment to breathe, letting her emotions settle in the aftermath of the encounter.
But deep down, a realization flickered to life. This was no longer about mere ambition. She was crafting her identity, navigating the fine line between artistic expression and commercial viability. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but she now understood that she held the brush. As she walked back to her workshop, determination surged through her like electricity. She would illuminate her path, refusing to be merely a reflection of someone else's vision. The choice of authenticity over validation loomed large, but so did the exhilaration of possibility. With renewed clarity, Sarah reached for her sketchbook, ready to chart her next steps. Yet a question lingered in the back of her mind. How far would she be willing to go to preserve her authenticity? As she flipped through her pages, an unsettling thought emerged. What sacrifices might lie ahead in her journey towards self-actualization? Sarah settled back into her workshop, the familiar chaos of unfinished projects and scattered pencils greeting her like an old friend. For years, this space had been her sanctuary, an environment where she created without boundaries. Yet today, it felt different, a crucible for her evolving identity. With the dealer's card still clutched tightly in her hand, a torrent of thoughts spiraled through her mind. What did success mean to her now? Was it signing contracts with high-profile dealers or maintaining the purity of her vision? The weight of that choice made her restless. She opened her sketchbook to a blank page, but the emptiness echoed her internal struggles. The question of adaptation nagged at her like an itch she couldn't scratch. She flipped back through her sketches, pieces that captured unfiltered moments of beauty and her unique perspective, each stroke a testament to her past processes. But as the dealer's words echoed, Sarah felt a gnawing sensation that maybe those works wouldn't fit into the polished world of galleries and high costs. Was her art even marketable? She lifted her pencil delicately, hesitating, weighing the implications of every line against the possibilities of compromise. Although the idea of collaboration with the dealer sparked a glimmer of hope, it also quelled the fire of her creative spirit. What if vitality and sincerity faded beneath the gloss of market trends?
In a moment of impulsive clarity, she decided to step beyond the boundaries of her workshop. Sarah reached out to fellow artists from her circle, eager to gather insights about their journeys, their struggles with authenticity. Her heart raced as she typed out messages, each letter a push against her own fears. "Do you ever lay awake wondering if you're losing your voice?" was her opening line to Mia, a sculptor known for her bold forms that defied convention. The response was almost immediate, reassuring and riddled with the same doubts that haunted Sarah.
Every show, Sarah. It's the price of exposure I guess we all pay. The read receipts glowed dark and somber, inciting a newfound urgency within Sarah. She arranged a small meetup, a spontaneous gathering to discuss the tension each artist faced between acceptance and self-truth. These were the conversations she craved, ones that grounded her amidst rising uncertainty. As the evening sunlight cast golden rays into the dim cafe, the group convened, their faces reflecting weariness and aspiration. Each story shared resonated with her on deep levels, the artist community vibrant yet uncertain. It dawned on Sarah that she was not alone in this struggle. Many wrestled with their creative integrity and what it meant to adapt. Through poised debates and shared laughter, Sarah felt a flicker of inspiration grow. They spoke not only of dilemmas, but also of gritting through vulnerability, the importance of being unafraid to disappoint at the expense of self-expression. She sensed a shift within herself. Perhaps she could blend elements of marketability without sacrificing personal truth. Armed with the revelations shared by her peers, Sarah returned home ignited with a new perspective. She picked up her sketchbook again, each stroke now reflecting a renewed vision, one that could marry authenticity with innovation. But a cold shadow crept in as she worked through the night, altering her resolve. The dealer's expectations loomed like an anchor, and the path became clearer yet fraught with peril. Would she unwind the threads she desperately sought to weave together? What would happen if she failed to sidestep the whirlpool of market expectations? As dawn streaked through the windows, illuminating her art in a tapestry of light, Sarah sat back and surveyed her creations, her heartbeat racing. The tension between her evolving identity and the commercial expectations of the art world pulsed vividly, but now it also rang with possibility. Yet as she lingered over her sketches, an unsettling thought struck her. Was she misunderstanding the delegation of her worth as an artist? Was the indulgence in both craftsmanship and commerce possible, or would it ultimately lead to her artistic demise? With her breath held tight in her chest, Sarah grappled with her choices, knowing that the journey ahead would be labyrinthine. One question reverberated within her. How would she define her own value, and was it too late to unlearn what she thought she knew? The sun bathed Sarah in a warm embrace as she emerged from the confines of her studio, the chill of doubt receding into the background. Clenching her sketchbook and brimming with resolve, she set out towards the gallery, her mind illuminated by the conversations and affirmations shared with fellow artists. The clarity deepened within her. A fusion of ambition and authenticity began to resonate through every fiber of her being.
This journey was no longer just about her voice. It was about creating spaces where those willing to share their truths would find a collective strength. The dealer had presented a doorway to recognition, but he did not hold the power to dictate its value. Each stroke on the canvas now echoed with intent, a blend of vulnerability and resilience that would invite conversation instead of compliance. As she arrived at the gallery, Sarah's heart raced, an electric anticipation coursing through her veins. She would confront the dealer. This discussion was going to shift from a mere pitch to an empowering dialogue about collaboration, a meeting of minds where she set the tone. Upon entering, she spotted him, engaged in conversation with another artist, a casual smile dancing upon his lips. As he noticed her approach, his demeanor shifted. He welcomed her with curiosity lingering in his eyes, a palpable air of expectation surrounding him. "What do you have for me, Sarah?" he inquired, leaning back comfortably as though assessing a game board. "Firstly, I want to express my gratitude for your interest," she began, her voice steady and infused with purpose. "But I also want to reinforce that my vision is not solely about commercial success. It is also about challenging narratives, illuminating hidden stories, and creating an inclusive platform for dialogue." The dealer raised an eyebrow, intrigued but unyielding. "And how do you plan to accomplish that within the confines of the art market? You know what's expected, don't you? It's about sellability." A spark ignited within Sarah, a blend of passion and conviction that had been missing just days before. "I refuse to be pigeonholed by someone else's expectations. My art embodies a struggle, a truth I deserve to share without compromising its integrity. My plan is to lead workshops that encourage others to find their voices, to challenge each other and ourselves, and to explore what vulnerability tangibly means through artistic expression." She could see the wheels turning behind his eyes, his previous casual demeanor shifting to thoughtful consideration. His silence encouraged her, pushing her to dive deeper. "I invite you to be part of this vision, not as gatekeeper, but as collaborator. Imagine a new series of exhibitions that embrace both quality and authenticity in a way that speaks to our shared experiences. This could be a revolution rather than an assimilation into existing systems." His expression softened, a glimpse of intrigue brightening the contemplation on his face. "You're advocating for a delicate balance, but what if those narratives don't align with conventional expectations? Then let's redefine those expectations together," Sarah asserted, bolstered by the newfound acceptance of her purpose. "What if art wasn't just about elitism, but connected us to the unseen struggles that weave our humanity together?"
Each piece could convey raw truths, allowing audiences to feel rather than judge. "Intriguing," he replied, the curiosity evident now as he leaned forward, genuinely engaged. "There's merit in what you propose." As they delved into the specifics, exchanging ideas, a surge of excitement filled Sarah. Each thought they explored together constructed roads towards possibilities, creating a bridge between commercial viability and artistic integrity. She recognized that she was not just selling art, she was advocating for a movement. By the time their conversation concluded, a new collaboration lay before them, one where Sarah had asserted her voice and vision, echoing loudly in a world she had once feared. As she left that day, propelled by accomplishment, Sarah marveled at the growth within herself. She had swapped rags for resolve. The woman, once struggling in the shadows, ascended into prominence, not merely as an artist, but as a catalyst for deeper understanding. Weeks later, the gallery opened its doors to an exhibit entitled Threads of Truth, a comprehensive showcase intertwining her grandmother's artworks with the voices of emerging artists. Sarah had curated not just a collection, but an experience that beckoned vulnerability to the forefront. Attendees were greeted with narrative journeys captured in vibrant colors and heartfelt expressions, not unlike her own. The opening night buzzed with a newfound energy, conversations fostered by shared experiences weaving through the gallery. Visitors lingered, drawn not only to the art, but to the stories behind them. It became evident that she had tapped into something profound. In realizing her values, Sarah crossed the threshold from invisible service to celebrated artist, a transition that transformed perceptions not only of herself but those around her. She embraced the integral weaving of art, identity, and the courage to speak. The applause echoed in the gallery, uplifting her as she stepped to the forefront of the audience. "Art transcends," she spoke, strength lacing her voice. "It connects us through our shared truths." As applause resounded, Sarah understood that this was not the end. It was the beginning of a journey far beyond recognition. Each moment not only etched her story, but began unveiling many others, fostering connections latent within the community. Her vision was finally being realized. She had conquered the fears that limited her and emerged recognized, empowered, and indelibly anchored in her authenticity. The caterpillar had transformed into a butterfly, but this time there would be no hiding among the leaves. Before the night concluded, whispers of her journey reverberated. Her story, a powerful ignition for others to unleash their truths, had unfolded. Navigating despite the turbulence had solidified Sarah's place within the art community, as she now stood alongside fellow storytellers and advocates, each finding strength in vulnerability.
With confidence swelling within her, she looked forward, ready to embrace every challenge with solidarity, igniting movement and change wherever her art would lead. Don't wait! This is the moment to join Sarah on her journey of self-discovery and transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help share these journeys with those who need to hear them. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey and what made a difference in your own life. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Spread the inspiration and start a dialogue that transcends art. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.